Right, shalom, shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, and double honors unto the apostles and elders of GreatMillStone, and honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. And I just want to continue to comment on the fall of Britain, so-called Great Britain, or as some people may call it, the United Kingdom. All right, and Britain is falling before our eyes. All right, not just Britain, but all these Edomite nations, man. Their best days are behind them. All right, the so-called white man, he's at the end. He's coming back. He's swiftly coming towards the end of his time, and there's no going back, man. You know, with the, once the Most High take away the juice, no man can retain it and no man can get it back. All right. The Most High appoint you a time to rise, and the Lord appoint you a time to fall. When it's your time to fall, man, there ain't no support, or there ain't no boost you can get to bring yourself back up. You shall fall, and you surely shall be broken. And I'm thoroughly enjoying watching the fallout from the Brexit. And watching these British politicians squirm, you know, and you know, just watching the delusion, all right, and them squirming and trying their best to get the juice back, but the juice ain't there. Okay, Britain has been exposed for being what it is, a weak nation. Okay, they lost their power that they had once. When they had the British Empire, that power is gone. They still walk around in the earth like they're a great power with pride, but it's become evident through this Brexit thing that they can't bully their neighbors, their Edomite neighbors. They have no power over them, and their power among the other nations is diminishing. Okay, Britain is being exposed through this Brexit deal as a weak nation on earth. Because the power that they received in these last days was through the beast, through being in the EU, and that's being exposed. So now you got Theresa May flying around because they already went to India, and basically India and them turned them away. All right, they're going to all these different the joke of the matter is they're turning, because their Edomite brethren are not trying to help them out. They're turning to the Commonwealth nations, which is a company of nations who used to be colonies, you know, and vassals that they abused and mistreated and oppressed for hundreds of years and exploited. And these same nations who are still vastly impoverished because of what the British did to them to this very day, these same nations Britain are running to, seeking succor, seeking support. It's a damn shame. All right, so let me play this clip.
The word robot. Theresa May. A rare glimpse these days of the Prime Minister enjoying the job. Though best not to mention the word robot. Theresa May came to this Cape Town school today to show Britain and Africa are dancing in harmony again. But amid the fun, she still couldn't get away from her problems on the home continent, Europe.
Yeah, so she running over there, which South Africa wasn't originally from the British, but she's on over there to South Africa, Nigeria. She's doing a tour of Africa and basically trying to get these nations to do trade deals with them. Because as of the 29th of March, Britain will have not one single trade deal on earth. They through. So they run into Africa, running here, running there. But these nations don't owe them shit. So every time they try and negotiate with these nations to get something done, these nations know they're in a weak position. So they want something. So they're not just going to be bullied into helping Britain, and they're not going to help Britain out of the kindness of their heart, because people remember what Britain has done and the pride in which they have oppressed. All right? They ain't got no friends, man. And that goes for the so-called white man as a whole. They've done backstabbed and done so much dirt on the earth. They ain't got no friends, man. Because they're wicked as hell. There's no nation on the planet Earth that Esau hasn't done dirty, man. This is a fact. There's no continent. There's no nation. They done themselves dirty, man.
Post-Brexit, she wants Britain to become a much bigger investor in Africa, whose economy is set to double in the 15 years.
So basically what that means is she's going over there and she's going to try and bribe these different African politicians into basically signing trade deals and allowing Britain to exploit them again.
It's to 2030. That, she said, would also involve a fundamental change in Britain's overseas aid policy to work in the national interest.
We will continue our commitment.
And why all of a sudden is she trying to do that? UK Africa Partners for Opportunity, because they're desperate. Yeah, and let's get the scriptures. This is Job 15 and 23. But you know what, man? We can read up a little bit. Job 15 and 18. Let's start from 17. I will shew thee, hear me, that which I have seen I will declare, which wise men have told from their fathers and have not hid it, unto whom alone the earth was given, and no stranger passed among them. The wicked man, right? And the wicked man begins with the so-called white man. He is the complete embodiment of a wicked man. All right? The wicked man travaileth with pain all his days, and the number of years is hidden to the oppressor. All right? And you can't tell me the British have not played the role of the oppressor. All right? A dreadful sound is in his ears. In prosperity, the destroyer shall come upon him. So this destruction is coming swiftly for not only Great Britain, but all these other these Edomite nations, man, in Europe and in America, Australia, South Africa. These different Edomite strongholds are going to be brought down because they're all oppressors. The Germans, the French, okay, they're all nothing but a bunch of oppressors, man. All right. He said, he believeth not that he shall return out of darkness, and he is waited for of the sword. He wandereth abroad for bread. And that's what Theresa May is doing, because she's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because I believe Theresa May knows that the Brexit was a mistake. But in the political environment in Britain right now, she has to push for the Brexit. And not only that, she has to try and sell the fact that it's going to be a no-deal Brexit. And they've already started selling that point, which that was always going to be the conclusion at the end of the day, because the EU don't owe Britain shit. And most of them EU nations don't like Britain. Don't think that Germany ain't forgotten how Britain double-crossed Germany in World War II. Don't think the French have forgotten the way Britain has treated France ever since the days of the American colonies. All right, there's a long history, even going back to Jake, between France and England. Don't ever get it twisted. These other European nations, man, do not like the UK. They don't like Britain. All right, when the number one, they hate America. And the second behind America is America's old nut hugger, which is Britain. All right. Let's jump back over there. So this is exactly what Theresa May is doing. She is going around the world, and also the trade secretary, trying to beg for bread. All right. He wandereth abroad for bread, saying, where is it? He knoweth that the day of darkness is ready at hand, because they know that this Brexit is going to completely annihilate the British economy and the British currency. They threw. All right? It's a mathematical certainty and a spiritual arrow, man, that the Lord have sent. All right? There's no way around it. Their time is up. All right? Let's get another scripture here, man. Esau's finished, man. Job 24 from the top. And let's get this article that I pulled up. All right? This is an article here, man. It says, now she was rolling around bragging how she made some kind of agreement. Well, she ain't made no agreement because there's nothing signed on paper yet. But she's desperate to make it look like they're achieving something. And that's the nature of this devil. This devil is not true. They're the ultimate spin doctors, man. Spin doctors and bullshitters, man. And especially the British. And they hide behind their vernacular. They hide behind the pleasant accent. When they're really just a bunch of bullshitters. That's why when you watch the UK Brexit secretary and Michel Barnier made it quite clear that, look, man, there ain't gonna be no deal. Okay? We ain't gonna compromise the 4 principles of the EU, and we ain't gonna stop you from leaving. Let's just sort out the security arrangements, which we've put forward, security, all right, and a few things to do with citizens, and how much money you're going to pay that you owe. And that's it. You're on your own. But over here, they're trying to make it look like there's some kind of possibility of there's going to be some kind of deal. There is no deal, man. But that's the nature of Esau, man. Esau is the master of confusion, of lies and deceit and spinning shit. All right? Now it says, Brexit, Theresa May claims trade deal success in Africa. And trading in Africa ain't gonna save Britain, man. Because Britain ain't buying, Africa ain't buying what Britain's selling, man. Them niggas is poor. Okay? Britain has been surviving the way they've been surviving because they've been doing business with other rich nations that buy their luxury goods and use their financial services, which make up 80% of British exports. Which, by the way, their friends over there in France, friends over there in Paris, and their friends in Berlin are trying to step right in to take away all that business for themselves. Hey, man. They ain't their brother's keeper, man. That's Esau for you. They're reduced to celebrating an agreement. It says, but critics say it's a rollover of existing EU agreement. They're reduced to celebrating an agreement to roll over a fraction of the existing trade deals that we already benefit from as EU members. What does that mean? As members of the EU, Britain is party to all the trade deals that the EU has with, I think it's up to 60 countries around the world. The EU has trade deals with up to 60 other countries outside of the EU around the world. Not to mention the fact that as being part of the EU, you are part of the trade bloc, which has 27 of the 35 most advanced economies in the world. Which, when you compare the GDP of France and Germany to these African nations, you put all them African nations together, they can't match France or Germany. That's the kind of hit we're talking about. And Britain is about to lose out on all that trade. They're losing. They're basically jumped out of the frying pan and into hell. Forget about the fire, into hell. Nuclear destruction, man. New gamma radiation, man. All right? They done destroyed themselves through pride. And the beautiful thing is, the reason why the Brexit vote went through, one, because it's prophecy. The scripture tells you that they won't cleave together. These Edomites won't, because these Edomites are hateful people. They can't get along not only with themselves, but they can't get along with any other nation. Because they're just a hateful people, and they're the most easiest people to manipulate when it comes to matters of immigration, because they're a hateful people. They hate, man. Most of those dickheads voted Brexit. They didn't know, they weren't concerned about the economy, you know. They were talking about immigration. Too many brown faces in England. When the EU, the EU is a bunch of white people anyway. Fucking idiots, man. These Edomites are not that fucking smart, man. You see, you Jakes have got to stop giving Esau credit, man. These Edomites, man, are low level. That's why I said the only thing they got left is their accent. These Edomites are really base, low-level people, man. And all you got to do is listen to talk radio when these devils call up and start talking. Then they're super emotional and they can't deal with facts. They don't operate on facts. They operate on their emotions. The men and the women. Yeah? They're bugged out group of people, man. That's why their politics is all messed up. Because these politicians just manipulate these fools. They're not that smart. All right? It says Theresa May has come under fire for claiming to have secured the UK's first post-Brexit trade deal, as it is merely a rollover of an existing EU agreement. Critics said the announcement to replicate, which that means it's not signed, a deal with 6 Southern African nations fell far short of boasts before the referendum of a new free trade area much larger than the EU. They also point out that it came amid doubts about whether the UK will be able to retain deals the EU has struck recently with Canada and Japan. Yeah, Japan have already come out and said, look, man, we're concentrating on the deal we just made with the EU. We ain't got time to be negotiating with you right now. Plus, any deal that Japan try and do with the UK, the EU gonna have a say in it. That's part of the documentation. See, Britain is relying on these other Edomite nations and these other nations giving them a break. but they don't deserve it. Nobody wants to help them, man. Not Canada and not Japan. Why? That's what you get for being an asshole for hundreds of years, which are far bigger economies. Last year, Britain exported 2.4 billion worth of goods to the 6 African countries included in Miss May's deal, just 0.7% of the value of its exports to the EU. So basically what this means is, even if this agreement, which through this agreement, they got to agree to pay off a whole bunch of leaders over there. So they got to pay off a bunch of people in Africa to try and get this agreement. They got to grease them palms. All right. And even then, it is nothing compared to what they're actually losing out on. Okay, just 0.7%, man, of the value of its exports to the EU and the rest of the world combined, which were worth 339 billion. So they ain't done shit. But she gonna come out and make it look like it's some kind of victory, because that's how the devil operates. But it's good. It gives these people a false sense of hope. The government has acknowledged the risk of a loss of trade after Brexit, which such countries admitting they could demand more favorable terms to agree a rollover with the UK. Basically meaning, look, man, if you want us to agree to any kind of deal with you after you leave the EU, you better start greasing our palms. Otherwise, F you. That's how they come in with it, right? Speaking in Cape Town, the Prime Minister announced an additional 4 billion of UK investment bribes in African economies, with the hope of further match investment from the private sector to come. All right, and she said, that's why I'm delighted that we will today confirm plans to carry over the European Union's Economic Partnership Agreement with the Southern African Customs Union and Mozambique once the EU's deal no longer applies to the UK. All right, but they haven't managed to achieve this with no one else. They're through. All right, all the way through, these damn devils, man. All right, you go do the research on they're trying to bring back together the Commonwealth. You go do the research on all these different nations that's in the Commonwealth and what Esau did to these nations as the British. And you tell me whether they're looking to help Britain out. Britain is through, man. Get this scripture, man. You devils, man. You're supposed to be the masters of English. You got the King James 1611. Well, maybe you and your high level vernacular can understand this. Job 24:1. Why seeing times are not hidden from the Almighty? Do they not know him, not see his, do they that know him not see his days? Some remove the landmarks. Yeah, that's what you Edomites did, man. You went around the world and you basically chopped up the world how you saw fit. Yeah? The Britain is the reason why there's a partition and there's a country called India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Britain did that. All right? They played their part in chopping up lands in Africa. The Americas, they played a part in that, the 13 colonies. All right? Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks. Yeah, rape, robbery, and murder. That's the legacy of the British Empire. The rape, robbery, and murder of all these different nations scattered around the world to support the British economy, man. Because prior to the Atlantic slave trade, right, which was a major part of their rise, the Britain's economy they were on their way out. When you do the research, the slave trade saved Britain. Because they always say, how did a little nation like Britain on an island manage to take control of the whole world? First of all, it was prophecy, because Britain is the seventh head mentioned in Revelation, the 17th chapter. Secondly, they did it because they were oppressors. They were rape, robbers, and murderers, man. That's how they managed to rise to where they got to. Through wickedness, through deceit, through oppression. And they were damn good at it too. Regulators. They were damn good at it. But you know what? There came a time when that seventh head had to step aside for the eighth, which was America. And these devils are still walking around like they really got that juice. All right? It says, Britain ain't really got no resources to support what they want to be. They ain't got no resources like that. They ain't got enough coal. They ain't got enough gas. They ain't got no oil like that. They rely on other nations, man. All right? Some remove the landmarks. They violently take away flocks and feed thereof. The potato famine in Ireland, the famines in India, some of the greatest famines in history were directly caused by the British. Oh, they ain't gonna make no movies on that. But this is history. They drive away the ass of the fabulous. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They turn the needy out of the way for hundreds of years. That's why these Commonwealth nations, even though they're rich in resources, are impoverished to this very day. When you look at the GDP of the various Commonwealth nations, let me show you something. Let's do the combined GDP of the Commonwealth. All right, which is a good measure of wealth. Combined GDP of the Commonwealth. Right, that includes nations like Jamaica and even India and all. Let's keep it real. All right, now remember that India has 1 billion people in it, and India has a GDP which is less than the UK, which has 60 million people in it. Just to show you that if you share that GDP among the population in India, there are poor people. But look at the Commonwealth nations. Their combined GDP is 9 trillion. 2 trillion of that is from Britain alone. Yeah, that leaves what, 7 trillion. 7 trillion, and they're only 60 million in population. Yeah. Out of the 2.4 billion of the entire Commonwealth. Let's go down. Let's find these GDPs, man. See, you gotta be able to deal with numbers, man. All right, let's check this out. This is the GDP, right? You look Australia, that's got 1.5. All right, billion. All right. Then you got who else has got high? Canada, 1.8. So you're already coming down to how many of these nations here? You're looking at. Let's do the quick mathematics. You're looking at Britain is minus 2.2. India. So Britain and India together is about 5 billion out of the 9 billion. What was it? What's the total? There we go. 9 billion? Yeah. All right. Make sure I'm getting these numbers correct. 9 trillion. All right, trillion, Salakia. I shouldn't be saying billion, I should be saying trillion. Right? So it's 9 trillion. Yeah, let's get these correct. So India and the UK make up about almost 5 of that straight away. So there's like 4 left. And you take Canada off, which is like 1.4. Yeah. Then you take Canada off. Then you take Australia off. So when you really break it down, between all the different nations that left in the Commonwealth, man, they ain't shit. Look, Antigua, like, look at this, man. These nations are impoverished, man. The peoples that come from these other Commonwealth nations are way impoverished compared. Like I said, you take India, their population is 1.3 billion compared to UK, which is 60 million. But they have pretty much the same GDP. So the average person in India is way poorer than the average person in the UK. Why is that? Why is that? Because the British are oppressors, man. Right? The scripture says they turn the needy out of the way. The poor of the earth hide themselves together. Behold, as wild asses in the desert go they forth to their work, rising betimes for a prey. See, these Edomites, they ain't got no problem being ruthless. The British have always been known to be ruthless. Yeah, they will never do anything which is in your favor or equal. It always has to be in their favor. They're bullies. That's the nature of this devil. And these now, they're turning around and trying to come to these same nations for help. You through, man. They reap everyone his corn in the field, and they gather the vintage of the wicked. Oh, sorry, the wilderness yielded food for them and for their children. They reap everyone his corn in the field, and they gather the vintage of the wicked. So what does that mean is that they take a little bit. They're eating out the wilderness. They're taking a little for themselves. Meanwhile, Esau's taking the larger portion. All right, they reap everyone his corn in the field, and they gather the vintage of the wicked. They cause the naked to lodge without clothing, that they have no covering in the cold. You go to all these different Commonwealth nations, you're going to find extreme poverty. Extreme poverty. As a direct result of the rape, robbery, and murder, and manipulation and underminement of the British and the rest of these Edomites. They created the third world. They maintained the third world as the third world. Now they're trying to go to the third world and these so-called developing economies, which are still on a low level, really, to try and save themselves, man. Get out of here, man. You done. All right. They are wet with the showers of the mountains and embrace the rock for want of shelter. They pluck the fatherless from the breast and take a pledge of the poor. Yeah. Esau don't mind. Oh yeah, we'll help you out. We'll give you a loan through our banks, through the IMF and so forth, with some ridiculous interest rate on there. You think these nations don't remember all that shit? And how Britain was involved in that? Hell out of here, man. They cause him to go naked without clothing, and they take away the sheaf from the hungry. Oh, let's go back to the famine in India. Esau caused the British caused famines in you go do your research. All right, they caused famines in India, man. Ask any Indian, they'll tell you. They actually caused famines, man. Look at that, how the British engineered the worst genocide in human history for profit. Search that and read it. Winston Churchill said, I hate Indians. Now, this is the same people that went to India not so long ago looking for a trade deal because they need help. I hate Indians. They are beastly people with a beastly religion. The famine was their own fault for breeding like rabbits. That's the spirit of this devil, man. This devil, he did these things on earth, man. He's the devil that the Bible speaks of, man. And the scriptures is telling you right there, man. They take away the sheaf from the hungry. What's the sheaf? What's the sheaf? The sheaves. Right? In the case of the Indians, it was the rice. I've seen documentaries on it, man. I would pull them up, but I don't want to get hit with a copyright. Go watch it. Go check it out. This is the history of the British Empire. They violate every nation, beginning with the nation of Israel, man. All right? Which make oil within their walls and tread their wine presses and suffer thirst. Men groan from out the city, and the soul of the wounded crieth out. Yet God layeth not folly to them. They are of those that rebel against the light, meaning the righteousness of these scriptures. These Edomites, oh, fair play. That's what these devils have been trying to promote. That these British don't believe in fair play. They don't believe in righteousness. Oh, we were the first nation to abolish slavery. Get the hell out of here. They know not the ways thereof, nor abide in the paths thereof. The murderer, rising with the light, killeth the poor and needy, and in the night is as a thief. All right? The eye also of the adulterer waiteth for the twilight, saying, no eye shall see me, and disguise his face. That's why behind the scenes, MI6 and we're doing nothing but wickedness star. In the dark they dig through houses which they had marked for themselves in the daytime. They know not the light. Yeah, constantly scheming. For the morning is to them as the shadow of death. If one know them, they are in the terrors of the shadow of death. He is swift as the waters. Their portion is cursed in the earth. He beholdeth not the ways of the vineyards. Drought and heat consume the snow waters. So doth the grave of those which have sinned. Yeah, the womb shall forget him. The worm shall feed sweetly on him. He shall be no more remembered, and wickedness shall be broken as a tree. Meaning these devils, man, are going to go down. He evil entreateth the barren that beareth not, and doeth not good to the widow. He joyeth also the mighty with his power. He riseth up, and no man is sure of life. Though it be that gunboat diplomacy, though it be given him to be in safety whereupon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn. And if it be not so now, who will make me a liar and make my speech nothing worth? So you Edomites, man. Beginning with what I'm talking about here, I'm focusing in on you British. You're done. You're finished. And I'm going to continue to document your fall. In fact, I might have to do a separate video. Look at these devils, man. Ex-colonies to UK, forget Brexit, Empire 2.0. Commonwealth leaders intend to hold to the guiding principle of equality among the members of the 53 nation camp, meaning they ain't trying to bow down to Britain and their BS no more. All right, it's over. All right, and there's another video I had, but I'm gonna have to go through this, man, another time. I don't want to make this video too long. I'm gonna get back to this. All right, so with that, I'm gonna say shalom.